There is something happening after midnight that most people never talk about. And I think it might be the thing you've been missing. Not a hack, not a trick, not some productivity system that sounds good for 3 days and then falls apart when real life shows up. Something older than all of that. Something that people figured out 2,000 years ago when they had nothing but fire, darkness, and the weight of their own thoughts. I want to talk to you tonight about the Stoics, about what they did when the sun went down, about how they used the quiet hours not to escape themselves but to become themselves. And I want to talk to you about why that matters for you, right now, in whatever season of life you're walking through. So take a breath with me. Slow it down. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're just someone who hasn't been shown the right things yet. Let's start there. Most of us are exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You close your eyes and you're still running, still replaying the conversation, still counting the things you didn't finish, still wondering if you're doing enough, being enough, moving fast enough in a world that seems to reward people who never stop. And then morning comes, and you do it all again. That's not living, that's surviving with a calendar. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. The tiredness you feel, a big part of it isn't physical. It's the tiredness that comes from never having any ground beneath your feet, never having a moment where you actually reckon with your day, where you sit with yourself long enough to ask, who am I becoming? Is this the direction I actually want to go? The Stoics understood this, deeply, and it's one of the most quietly powerful things they gave to history. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the known world. Emperor of Rome, commander of armies, responsible for millions of lives, and if you read his private journals, the ones we call the Meditations, you realize something startling. This man was tired too. He wrote about the mornings when he didn't want to get up, about the temptation to coast, to be comfortable, to let the position carry him instead of him carrying the position. He wrote about anger he had to wrestle down, about grief, about the fear of death. He wasn't superhuman. He was a human who built something like iron inside himself, slowly, deliberately, in the quiet hours when no one was watching. And here is the part that changes everything. He didn't build that discipline in the daytime rush. He built it at night. The Stoics had a practice called the evening review, and it was deceptively simple. Before sleep, you sit with your day, you look at it honestly, not harshly, not to punish yourself, but to see clearly, to be a fair witness to your own life. Epictetus taught it, Seneca practiced it, Marcus Aurelius poured it into those private pages that were never meant for anyone else. Seneca wrote, and I want you to hear this slowly, he wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. I hide nothing from myself. I omit nothing." Not nothing that went wrong. Everything. The whole day, the places where he was patient, the places where he wasn't, the moments of courage, the moments he chose comfort over truth. And then he would ask himself 3 questions. What did I do wrong today? What could I have done better? What did I actually do right? That third one matters, because discipline without self-compassion eventually breaks a person. The Stoics were not in the business of self-torture. They were in the business of self-knowledge. There is a difference. Let me tell you what happens to a person who never looks at their own day. The days blur together. One week feels exactly like the last. You wake up 6 months later wondering where the year went. You have this nagging feeling that you're moving but not arriving anywhere, that you're busy but not building anything. You're not lazy, please hear me say that. You're not lazy, you're unmoored. There's no anchor point in your days, no moment where you stop and say, here, this is what happened today, this is what I learned, this is who I was, this is who I want to be tomorrow. Without that, life just happens to you. And something deep inside you knows it. That restlessness you feel, that low hum of anxiety, that sense that you should be further along, that's not a character flaw. That's wisdom knocking on the door. That's the part of you that knows you were made for more intentional living. The Stoics didn't silence that voice. They listened to it. Now I want to talk about something that might be a little uncomfortable. Because it's not enough to just review your day. The Stoics went further. They practiced what was called negative visualization, or as Marcus Aurelius framed it, meditating on difficulty before it arrives. Before sleep, they would sit quietly and ask, what could go wrong tomorrow? What might be hard? What might test me? And I can already hear some of you thinking, that sounds like anxiety. That sounds like the exact pattern I'm trying to break. Why would I deliberately think about hard things before I sleep? Here's the difference. Here's the crucial difference. Anxiety spirals. It catastrophizes. It takes the worst possibility and treats it as the inevitable truth, and then builds a whole prison around that story. Stoic preparation is different. It's calm. It's almost tender in a strange way. You're sitting with yourself and saying, okay, what might be difficult tomorrow? And if that happens, who do I want to be? How do I want to respond? You're not predicting doom. You're building a self that can meet whatever comes. When something hard arrives and you have never even imagined it could arrive, it overwhelms you. When something hard arrives and you've sat with the possibility quietly with your own steady breath, you recognize it. You've met it somewhere before, and you know what you want to do. That's what Marcus Aurelius was doing every night when he wrote. He was meeting the versions of tomorrow before tomorrow came. And then when tomorrow arrived, he had already decided who he would be inside of it. Let me talk about something else the Stoics understood about night. They understood that the darkness is honest in a way that the daylight isn't. During the day, we're performing. Even when we don't realize it, we're managing how we appear to other people. We're responding to emails and obligations and the thousand tiny negotiations of public life. We're playing a character that is shaped partly by everyone else's expectations. At night, especially in the quiet, the character falls away. And what's left is you, just you. Some people run from that. They fill the night with noise, with screens and scrolling and content and anything that stops the silence from arriving. And I understand that. I really do. Because what's waiting in the silence can feel frightening if you haven't been shown how to sit with it. But the Stoics chose to walk toward it. Not because they were masochists, not because they thought suffering was noble, but because they understood something about self-knowledge that we have almost forgotten in the modern world. You cannot improve what you cannot see. And you cannot see yourself clearly in the noise. The night, the quiet, the honest darkness before sleep, that is where you become visible to yourself. And once you can see yourself clearly, not harshly, not cruelly, but clearly with the same compassion you would offer a good friend, once you can do that, you can actually change. Not perform change, actually change. Now here's what I want you to take from all of this. You don't have to be Marcus Aurelius. You're not running an empire. You're running a life which honestly might be harder in some ways because nobody gives you a palace staff for that. You just have to take 10 minutes. Tonight before sleep, put the phone down, sit somewhere quiet, and ask yourself those 3 questions. What did I do wrong today? Be honest, be gentle. You're not putting yourself on trial, you're being a fair witness. What could I have done better? Not what should you have done, not the version of yourself that never makes mistakes. Just honestly, in that moment, what was available to you that you didn't choose? And what did I do right? This one matters. Please don't skip it. Because we are so quick to catalog our failures and so slow to acknowledge our quiet victories. The moment you chose patience. The moment you told the truth when lying would have been easier. The moment you showed up even though you didn't feel like it. Give those moments the same weight you give the mistakes. And then, if you want to go further, ask yourself, what might tomorrow ask of me? What might be difficult? Who do I want to be inside that difficulty? And then sleep. Not to escape yourself, but to restore yourself. so that tomorrow the person who wakes up is a little more the person you're building. This is what iron discipline actually is. It's not the dramatic moments. It's not the cold shower at 5 in the morning or the brutal workout or the extreme restriction. Those things have their place, but they're not where character is actually forged. Character is forged in 10 quiet minutes at the end of a hard day. In the willingness to sit with your own life and look at it honestly. In choosing, night after night after night, to be a fair witness to yourself instead of a harsh judge or an excuse maker. The Stoics built inner worlds that could not be destroyed by outer circumstances. Marcus Aurelius lost children. He fought plague. He led armies and buried friends and carried weight that would have crushed most people. And he kept coming back to the same practice, night after night, sitting with himself, asking the honest questions, deciding who he would be tomorrow. That's the discipline, not the gritting of teeth, the returning, the showing up to your own inner life with consistency and care and the stubborn refusal to sleepwalk through the only life you have. I want to close by speaking directly to you. If you've made it this far, something in this resonated. Some part of you recognized something. Maybe you've been feeling lost in the busyness. Maybe you've been exhausted by your own patterns and you haven't known how to change them. Maybe you've been waiting for some dramatic moment of transformation and it hasn't come. It's not coming the way you think. It comes in 10 minutes of quiet. It comes in the decision tonight to not just fall into sleep, but to use the space before sleep as something sacred, as a ritual of becoming. The Stoics knew what we have forgotten. That discipline is not a war you fight against yourself. It's a conversation you have with yourself, regularly, honestly, with compassion and clarity as your guides. You are not too far gone. You are not too tired. You are not too old or too young or too broken or too behind. You are someone who is learning, the way every wise person before you had to learn, that the greatest work of your life happens in the quiet, in the honest reflection. In the 10 minutes you could have spent on another video, another scroll, another escape, and instead chose to spend with yourself. Start tonight. That's all. Just tonight. If this reached something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is one thing you did right today, not what you failed at, what you got right. Let's build that practice together right here, right now, in this space. And if you want to go deeper into living with more intention, more peace, and more of that quiet strength the Stoics were reaching for, come find us at dilarafhapinis.org. We're building something there that's worth your time. Good night, take care of yourself tonight. You deserve that much.